You and Your Young Child, a program of information and services available for you and your child from prenatal to age 5. You and Your Young Child has been brought to you in part by the Sternberg Museum of Natural History.
Stop! Where are we going?
The Sternberg!
Don't get left behind. We're waiting for you here at the Sternberg Museum, where there's always new opportunities for
Discovery under the dome.
Hello, and welcome to You and Your Young Child, the program devoted to early childhood. My name is Dana Stanton, and I'm the coordinator of Early Childhood Grants for USD 489. And with me today is Susan Bowles. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Dana.
Now, first of all, Susan, tell us, what organization do you work for, and what do you do there?
Okay, I work with the Hayes Era Children's Center, and I'm their executive director.
Now, before you were the executive director, you had some other duties. What did you do?
Actually, for quite a few years, I was a speech-language pathologist for children from birth to school age, through age 5.
Now, you were here a month or so, maybe 2 months ago, and we talked about communication strategies that would be used, that parents could use with very young infants, you know, little tiny guys. Now, today, you're going to tell us some communication strategies to use with a baby who's about a year old.
That's right, Dana.
Yes.
These are strategies that I shared when I was a speech-language pathologist working with families. I shared these many times, and we're talking now about the young babies who are starting to use their first words, and many times this will be around 10 months to about 14 months. And so one of the first strategies that we're going to talk about is labeling. This is a good time for the parents, or you might be a grandparent, or just anybody who has is taking care of a child can use. Labeling is when that adult caregiver uses an important word or a meaningful word for that child and names it for them frequently. Important words for young children might be other family members, mommy, daddy, nana.
Sissy, Bubba.
Sissy, Bubba, brother, correct. It might be pets. It could be favorite food items, or it could be toys that they like to play with. Those are some suggestions for first words that you'll hear young infants start to use when they're about a year old.
You know, I hadn't thought about that. You know, you kind of take it for granted that we know the names of objects all around us, but for, you know, a 1-year-old or an infant, we have to let them know that this is a cup or this is a ball or things like that.
That is correct. And that kind of leads into our second strategy, which is repetition.
You can say that again. We planned that out. Repetition. Okay, go.
Anyway, repetition. Young children need to hear a word many times so that they can understand it. And once they understand that word, then they'll start to eventually use the word. So we want to use repetition. And there's a strategy that you can use, or a technique that you can use, or a parent can use. It's called sandwiching. And that's where you use that meaningful word at the beginning of a phrase and then again at the end of a phrase. So for example, if the 1-year-old is learning the word cup, and they were wanting their milk that's in their cup, and they're pointing and gesturing to it, you could pick the cup up and you could say, cup, you want your cup. Or cup, oh, mommy has your cup, or daddy has your cup, and then give them their cup.
You can say, and what do you have? And hopefully they'll say cup.
Well, eventually they'll say that. At first, though, you bring up a good point. At first, you want to limit the type of what questions that you ask a young child, because you want to just label and pause, and they'll naturally start to imitate or repeat that word after you, and that's what we want to see. Another example is if you have a dog, like Bubbles is our dog. If Bubbles was coming into the room, I'd say, oh, Bubbles, here comes Bubbles. You see Bubbles, let's pet Bubbles. So they're hearing that word many, many times, and they'll eventually learn that Bubbles is the name of the dog, and pretty soon you'll hear that infant start to say Bubba or even Ba. And that brings up another thought. Many times young children, when they first start to talk, they'll have just word approximations. They won't actually use the word bubbles or the word cup correctly. You'll often just hear that first consonant or that first vowel. You'll hear either ba, bubba, or maybe ka for cup. And so that's why, as caregivers, we have to be very good listeners so that we hear that word that they're saying and we pick up on it and we acknowledge that. Exactly. And we say, oh, you said bubbles. Yeah, here comes Bubbles. And then you get that communicative interaction going back and forth between you and the young child, and that just promotes even more communication.
One of the things you were talking about, gestures. Tell us how gestures come into play.
Well, gestures are very important for young children to learn their first words. And many times, you see a young child who begins to want to be picked up, and you often see them
this
just
stuff, yeah.
using their hands or picking their arms up. So when you have a child that wants to be picked up, if you say, do you want up, or use gestures, they'll begin to use that gesture themselves, and pretty soon that word starts to come. But you can also use some beginning signs, and there's some nice references that we can use. You can look on the internet, or you can Google to get some signs for children. There is some materials called Sign with Your Baby by Joseph Garcia, if you want to look that up on the internet, or you can look up aslpro.com. They have a dictionary. It's American Sign Language. They have a dictionary. You can look up many words there. So many times if your child is learning to say, let's say ball, and you can say, oh, there's a ball. Do you want the ball? Let me roll that ball to you. I've worked with many children who are hearing impaired or deaf, and it's interesting because motor skills come earlier than vocal communication skills. And so often they'll learn to sign words at 8, 9, 10 months before they're ever saying them. Many times I'll have parents say to me, but I'm afraid if I do sign and gestures that they won't then learn to talk. But what actually happens is that the young child is building that pathway in their brain, and they'll start to sign, and they're always listening. As a parent, you always need to use your verbal with your sign. And as they start to sign, and you know that they understand that sign, then you drop the sign out, and you just start verbalizing the word, like, oh, ball, you have your ball, or you want your ball, and pretty soon they'll start to use that.
I know with my little
well.
one, they would use the sign like for milk, and then before long they would start dropping the sign, and they were just speaking.
And it's really a facilitator, or it fosters that verbal communication. So the last thing I wanted to share with you, Dana, is that it's just very important that we become good listeners, so that we're interacting and promoting that communication, so that if we use these strategies of labeling, repetition.
You can say that again.
Labeling. Labeling, repetition, gestures, or sign, your baby will be talking with you in no time, and that's what we want.
Now, say you have, you're doing all these things, and maybe you have a concern that your child is maybe not communicating or speaking when they should. Who can they contact if they have a question, just want to get a checkup, or just to talk to someone to make sure everything's okay?
Yes, we do have monthly screenings at the Hazy Area Children's Center. You can call us. We are in the phone book. We are on the internet. We are on Facebook, but you can call 625-3257, the Hazy Area Children's Center, and you can ask for a developmental screening. We'll be happy to do that for you.
Wonderful information. Thank you so much,
Okay,
Susan.
thanks, Dana.
You've been watching You and Your Young Child, the program devoted to early childhood. Parents, remember, you are your child's first and best teacher. Thank you.
You and Your Young Child, a program of information and services available for you and your child from prenatal to age 5. You and Your Young Child has been brought to you in part by the Sternberg Museum of Natural History.